TG Geeks, episode 369, March 14th, 2022. Stitches and stuff. Hello and welcome to another webcast from tggeeks.com, where Ben and Keith, the Two Gay Geeks, talk about all aspects of geekdom and nerdery, sci-fi, comics, film, horror genre, you name it, we talk about it. I'm Keith Lane. We're coming to you from TG Squared Studios in lovely Phoenix, Arizona.
Stitches and hangnails and presents. Oh my.
Yes.
Yes, and I'm Ben Ragginson, coming to you from the home of the radio gods. Yes, you need to chat with Katie Edwards about why I use that. Here in pollen-filled Phoenix, Arizona.
Yes, on the day before daylight savings time that we don't observe.
God, don't remind me.
That messes up my Outlook calendar at work every single year.
We still lose an hour of sleep because you work on Eastern time.
Exactly. And let's just get on with it here.
Prepare for hyperdrive.
Meanwhile, in the Hall of Episodes, the Two Gay Geeks are discussing this.
Well, this time we're going to talk to Colin McDonald. He is from OnStream Productions, and he has a new short film called Stitches. We covered his Hangnail short here a couple of years ago, and we're going to talk to him about
ran a press
Stitches.
release on Stitches earlier this week.
Exactly. Have our birthday shout-outs, our featured podcast of the week, feedback. Got some shout-outs, and in the second segment, we have something to talk about, should we have some time. Our wacky weekly recap, and then our regular shout-outs. So let's get on with this interview. We welcome to our show Colin McDonald, filmmaker and out of Nova Scotia, and he has a new short film out that we'll talk about just shortly. Welcome to the show, Colin.
Oh, thank you so much, Keith and Ben, for having me.
Yeah,
our pleasure.
Absolutely. So tell us who Colin McDonald is.
We're going to call him McConnell?
Colin, there we go. Colin McDonald.
Yeah, Colin McDonald. That's it.
Wow. Can I talk today?
You have just been given a new name. You're McCollin now. Sounds like a scotch.
There we go. Yeah.
Well, I mean, I appreciate that you didn't call me Colin McDonald. Because, I get that a lot.
Oh, remind me after this to tell you a joke.
I see a possible script.
Yes.
In your future.
Yeah. Oh my! It's already derailed, and we haven't even introduced you.
Oh, that's the best way to go, right?
All
Just off
right.
the rails.
So, the kind of like the elevator pitch of your life and how you got into filmmaking and how that all happened.
For sure. I guess. If I was looking back, I kind of realized my filmmaking interest started when I was probably like 6 or 7. And I didn't know it for years. But one of my favorite things to do as a kid was actually going to the video store and renting the extended VHS tape of Michael Jackson's Thriller.
Oh, wow.
And on that tape, apparently, my parents have told me this numerous times, but on that tape, there was also like a 20 or 30 minute behind the scenes. And so we would go on a regular basis and rent that. And I loved the video, was obsessed with zombies even back then, and would watch the making of. So I think, like, looking back, that's where it started.
Yeah.
But I didn't realize that was something I wanted to pursue until, my mid-20s. Early 20s. I went to university for a couple of years in science. I had dreams of wanting to be a marine biologist. I was obsessed with sharks since I was a little kid, too. Jaws was one of my favorite movies, so I just wanted to do that. And then
I thought you were going to say you wanted to be a mortician.
Zombie shark.
Oh, that might have made sense too.
Yeah.
Okay.
No, yeah, I did that, and then 2 years, and I was like, I'm not cut out for this. And then took a couple of years off and looked at the community college in Nova Scotia. Had a great film program that actually, like, Jason Eisner, who did Hobo with a Shotgun, went through. A bunch of great filmmakers, from this area went through. So it's 2 years. It wasn't as big of a commitment, so I signed up for that and loved it, and just kind of rolled with it.
That's cool.
And then what was great about the community college is because it's an applied arts, it's all about kind of like a trade.
Right.
They kind of direct you into like industry contacts. You do an internship. So I did this internship with a production company that were doing horror documentaries. They did one, Zombie Mania, which was about like the history of zombies. And they were doing one about women in horror at the time. So I kind of did my internship with them. And then a couple of years after that, that director called me up. I ran into her in the grocery store, and she was like, all right, I'm doing this new documentary about Greg Nicotero and KBNFX, and I want you to be my PA, and basically offered me a job in the grocery store. And that was my first gig.
Wow.
And then it kind of just,
that job in the
rolled with
grocery
that.
store
I
work
did
out?
freelance stuff like that, and just made shorts and music videos at the same time, just to kind of hone my craft.
Yeah. I just made a joke. I said, how did that job in the grocery store turn out?
Right.
She offered you a job in the grocery store.
Right. Yeah.
Commas matter.
Well, it was one of those surreal moments. Like, looking back, I find it very funny. Just like, I did that gig for a year and a half.
Wow, that's great.
And as a horror nut, it was just like, I ended up going down to Los Angeles with them for the first week of shooting. Got to film at the studio. Met Elijah Wood and a few people. Went to a bunch of events in Hollywood. And I was like, I'm not cut out. Like, this is, I'm just this bumpkin. My partner at the time was pregnant at back home, and I was like, I'm
not worthy. I'm not worthy.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, that's interesting that you are into zombies. There's a couple of things this week that Brad Dourif's birthday is this week.
Oh, and God, love that actor.
They've announced that he's playing Henry Blackmore in Harvey West what is it? Reanimator?
Reanimator?
Yeah. And they're
cool.
They're doing I just wrote that down. I can't remember now. Herbert West, sorry, which is that's a Lovecraft thing. Yeah. So I guess, zombies kind of went all the way back to Lovecraft. You always think that George Romero was Mr. Zombie himself. He made zombies,
For the cinema, yeah, it all really starts with George Romero, but wow.
Yeah.
That's exciting to know. Anyway.
That's cool.
Anyway.
That's a great casting though. I'll keep an eye out for that.
Oh yeah. And so you have this company, OnStream Productions, and you have a new film that came out. We covered one of your films, what was it, 2 years ago?
Yeah, Hangnail.
Something like that, Hangnail. Yeah. And this one is called...
this one's called Stitches.
Stitches.
So, very self-explanatory titles.
Exactly. And we just ran the press release the other day, and I watched it. I loved it.
Thank you.
I loved Hangnail too. I just rewatched it just before this morning, and it was like, wow, that is such.
Hangnail is so creepy.
It's just so creepy.
It's disturbing and creepy.
Yeah.
Thank you. That's the reaction I want. So.
And you do apparently you enjoy body horror significantly, because those two pieces are what you would consider body horror.
And what does your therapist have to say about that?
Exactly. Is that...
Funny thing, I'm in between therapists right now.
I see.
This
for
is your
a reason.
Therapy. Okay.
Movies are my therapy, I guess.
Several people have said that. Horror movies are their therapy. So...
what seems to be the problem?
Yes. And another interesting, David Cronenberg's birthday is this week, and he is the the Baron of Blood and kind of the originator of the body horror genre. So that's kind of neat too. That we're talking to you on this eve of his birthday.
Yes, that's quite the coincidence. He's one of those. Romero and Cronenberg are probably like two of my biggest influences in terms of filmmaking and getting into it. And yeah, Cronenberg's body horror definitely. Like I remember finding a VHS copy of Shivers.
I don't know
number
that
of years
one.
ago. It's Cronenberg's like first body horror. It's his like second or third film.
Wow.
But the funny thing is, even though it's Canadian, it may have changed now, but for the longest time, it has not been in print in Canada on any format. So I have this VHS copy from like 20 years ago that I just can't get rid of because I can't get it on anything newer on DVD or anything like that.
You just keep making copies of it.
Yeah. And it has like an interview with him at the end. So like,
cool.
But I found that actually in a grocery store. I think it was in a bin at a Sobeys grocery store, and it was like $2. So I bought it. And it's about this parasite that this scientist is designing, but it gets loose in this big apartment complex in Montreal, and then it basically causes everyone who gets infected to revert to their most primitive instincts, which is to kill or have sex. Ooh. So it's just a lot of like violent sex scenes, and it just like the ending. Just,
those are some pretty powerful extremes.
The sex scenes end in a murder.
And there's just so many great stories. I remember in the interview, he talks about how his lead actress couldn't. Like, she's basically in hysterics the entire time, but she had trouble getting there when they would start filming. So they had developed this routine, and it was on her request, apparently. And this is all anecdotal from the interview I watched, but where they would go into another room and he would basically slap her around.
Oh, dear.
Good Lord.
To get her there, to this hysterical place. And they did that for weeks or whatever, but then they had this, like, kind of, I can't remember the actress's name, but she came on for like a day part on the film, and she was pretty well known in the Canadian industry, pretty experienced. And she walks on set, and then the first thing she sees is the director and this other actress go off, and he beats her up. It was just this like surreal moment where she's like, "What the hell did I get myself into?"
Really? What in the world?
And how fast can I contact my agent and get out of this?
Yeah, right.
Wow.
But I mean, the film, it's just like, it's so visceral, and it's so. Like, that's got me into. So then it was, Rabid and Videodrome and The Fly, and all of those
remember.
Body horror.
Yeah, I saw those. Those were so. I don't quite know where to begin, because I'm looking at your website right now, and I'm seeing immediately on the first page I see 6 films, and are you like primarily a body horror kind of filmmaker?
No, that's kind of been a new kind of exploration the last couple of years with Hangnail. I did a few zombie movies. One of my biggest first films, I've been making films, like short films, since I got out of film school, which was in 2008. So I kind of kept going after film school. One of my biggest ones was, had elements of body horror, but it's called Presence. And it's kind of supernatural, and it's about a musician who loses his hearing in one ear, and in doing so he actually starts connecting with another, like, entities from another dimension, basically. And that starts to the dimensions start to merge, but it's more psychological. It's kind of goes into him unraveling as an artist and losing that kind of his most precious sense. So there's the elements of body horror with that, and it ends with a gruesome kind of body horror moment, but it's much more psychological. And then I've done a few comedies and just some more like existential dramas. I kind of all over the map. The body horror is, and I've done a lot of music videos, which have done a wide range of kind of topics, from horror and extreme to, fun and campy. But the Hangnails really kind of came out with trying to make something in the pandemic. It was an idea that I always had sitting around in my head for a good number of years, but it felt too easy. Not easy, but like just too simple to make. I
Really?
There wasn't, in the sense that there wasn't as much kind of psychological aspect to it. It was just much more of a visceral type, like snappy, kind of viral thing. And I was always trying to make something that was had a little bit more of a story to it.
Interesting.
But then with the pandemic, And I was sitting around on it, and it was my partner and I, and we were basically bored on weekends. And I was like, I had this thing, I would just need you to act and kind of do the effects. Why don't we just make this and we'll put it out and it'll just be a fun little thing. Like, we did not expect anything to come of it. And we shot it in one night, her and I, and then I brought in, I got connected online with my composer, Jerry Smith, who's down in Los Angeles. And he did the music like super fast, and it was fantastic. And then it kind of just rolled. He was sending it out to people he knew, because he writes for some big, he's written for Dread Central and a bunch of different magazines. So he sent it out to a few people, and we got a premiere on Dread Central, and then it just kind of took off from there.
Cool.
And it's gone. Like, that one was kind of ridiculous. Like, there was a period where it was like every day I was getting 3 or 4 festivals asking for it.
Oh, wow.
And winning awards. And I was like, I felt kind of bad, because I was like, this isn't something I put, I didn't put near as much effort into it as I did any of my other films. And here it is, like, just kind of blowing up, but people seem to like it. So then with Stitches, it was like, okay, I want to take that, but I want to do it a little bit, I want to do it a little bit more intentional. I want to put a little bit more effort, kind of push ourselves. So it was still just my partner and I, Nicole Barron, and I, but I mean, we shot for 13, 14 hours. Wow. As opposed to like 6 that we did for Hangnail.
Right.
And we developed the effects over a couple of weeks leading up to it, and, pulled in a lot. I rented a bunch of equipment, spent probably twice as much money on it. Because Hangnail we probably made for like $50, not counting festival fees. So,
wow. And this one costs $12,000. It's that one piece of equipment. It's that 4K.
Yeah, exactly, right? But yeah, it was still just us. And
nobody told me I could rent one. I went and bought one.
That is the way I work. Why rent and have to give it back? But yeah, we just had a blast, but it was definitely pushed us a lot more. And it was just, we were just trying to do something that was like, we want to make it even more visceral. Like, we finished shooting and it was like 2 a.m. and I came down and I was like, okay, I just got to dump the footage to the computer so it's done. I don't want it sitting on hard drives. So I'm copying it over, and Nicole brings me down some food, and I'm sitting there eating, and we're just looking at the raw footage of the effects, and she's like dry heaving, gagging, and I'm sitting there eating my supper at 2 a.m. It was just a really surreal moment. So we realized, like, okay, this is something we may want to even put a disclaimer on it.
Yeah. Well, I did.
Well, we had to.
I did. And
yes, I appreciate that.
Warning. Danger, Will Robinson.
Yes. I've had a few friends say, you guys have been kind of muted on my Facebook for the next few months until this passes. Because I can't even see the poster. So,
yeah.
Well, if you want to go for like really gross, I mean, it would have been funny if you had like another camera set up while the two of you were watching this thing being dumped, moving it from onto the computer, and then watching her just kind of like vomit all over the equipment.
Well, I think we've had about 3 people now. Well, there was her, and then actually my Jerry, the composer, he had supper and then watched the first rough cut I sent him, which didn't have any sound effects or any music or anything. And he said he almost lost his supper. And then I had a pregnant friend of mine. I mean, she is well pregnant, but she said, yeah, you made me throw up. Thank you. But she loved it. She just was like, maybe my stomach can't handle it right now.
Okay, so
there's very few things I will watch anything.
I mean, there are things that have just like I don't know if I'm ready to heave, but I've seen things. I remember watching in this. I would qualify this as body horror because it was really disturbing. I was in grade school and watching this was a film made for students about first aid. And they showed things like bad broken bones, compound fractures, and you're seeing bones sticking out of leg and, and blood and everywhere. And I literally I had to it was a trick that I learned from my mom years ago. And that is, okay, I feel like the blood is draining out of my head now. I'm going to pass out. So luckily, because my chair was in the back of the classroom by sheer luck, I'm like, I draped myself over the chair so that I could just like get the blood going to my head because I thought I was going to die right there. It was just awful. And I'm thinking, you're showing body horror in the guise of educational films to children. No wonder we're so messed up today.
Right. Well, I'll tell you, I get that because like the real stuff does like that. That disturbs me, like seeing real like surgeries or medical things. But one of my second jobs was on a true crime documentary show.
Oh wow!
And I was the PA. I was paid like the lowest on the totem pole. I think it was like paid $100 a day, or whatever. And my job a lot of the times was to like source out crime scene photos or video for like actual like serial killers. There was one point where the FBI sent us this video of an autopsy from the 70s.
Oh, cool.
And it was this surreal thing because if you think of movies that were filmed in the 70s and like the look of them, kind of, like the film stock, the grain, the lighting, it felt like a bad 70s movie. It felt very fake.
Really?
But at the same time, I knew it was real. But they're like open a body and like inspecting all of their, the organs. And it was just like, I am not paid enough to do this.
Oh.
There were times I had to actually like doctor some crime scene photos because they were too graphic for the network. So I was sitting there like, I'm being paid pennies and I'm that guy who's like altering history right now by covering this person's body up.
That
so
really,
weird.
you bring up a really good psychological point there because Keith and I have watched. I mean, I'm not really into so much the true crime type shows. But Keith and I are big fans of CSI, and there's, a number of times where they've done full body autopsies, and I'm watching it and fully knowing, because Keith and I have done Hollywood studio tours, and we understand how, we've seen the dummies on the bed that are being opened up. And when you're looking at it in real life, it looks incredibly fake. So that by the time it gets translated even to a high-def television...
It's the magic of the camera.
Yeah, the magic of the camera, a little more magic in post. It looks a bit more believable. But to see something that perhaps looks the other way, visually it looks faker than normal, but knowing this is a real thing, I don't know, that might mess me up pretty badly.
Yeah, no, it was... And it really did. And like, there's a lot of times where I go back to the stories. I was like, I probably have some PTSD from that job. There was moments where I would have to like just go through their library of crime scene photos, but I didn't know because they were based in the States and we were here in Nova Scotia. So like the connection wouldn't be fast, and I would be trying to preview images before opening the Bob, just to see if it would be relative.
Right.
But it wouldn't load a preview, so then I would just be opening photos not knowing what I was going to see, and like there'd be times where I'm like, is that a severed head? Like, what am I looking at?
Oh my god.
Oh my gosh.
Or like, and then there were moments where like, I had to call the FBI, or there's one point one of my first days on the show when I was like, this was my second or third job in the industry. I was still really green and, didn't have a lot of confidence. And they put me on and they're like, okay, you're going to talk to this detective in New York about this murder case. And I ended up talking to him for like 2 hours, and he offered for me to call the murderer on death, like in prison. And
my God.
Oh, that's intense.
This. Like, this is well beyond my job description.
I don't think so.
Yeah, that's way outside my pay grade.
Wow.
I learned a ton. And obviously, I worked on that show for a couple of years. Like I did a good enough job, but it was very, it was like being thrown into the fire.
Well,
wow.
Well, the cool thing about talking to, if you were to talk to that murderer, you may not get any extra pay for it, but boy, that's one hell of a bragging right.
No
kidding. No, it's true. It's
Wow.
true. I didn't talk to him, but I did talk to the photographer he photographed he is a UK photographer, like crime scene photographer and artist, and he photographed like the Great Train Robbery or something. What was it? Anyway, I just remember they're like, okay, you're going to talk to this guy, but he's old, he has bad hearing, and he hates repeating himself. So don't piss him off.
Great.
And I was like, okay, great.
Well, there's 2 strikes against you already.
Yeah, totally. I was like, oh, this is not. But we ended up talking for like an hour, I think, an hour and a half or something, and we got along. So it was,
that's cool.
It was definitely some,
So
it's going from that and like working on these Hollywood docs, as a first gig. I was like, this is very, it's quite the start to a career.
Cool.
So I want to ask about this new film, Stitches. First, tell people what it's about, because we've only just talked about the title, although I think a lot of people can sort of guess. And where did the idea come from?
For sure. Yeah. So it's only 6 minutes, and this title is self-explanatory, so it's hard to like summarize without just
exactly
saying what it is. But it's kind of the idea of someone's, who has an accident, and the anxiety of, how to summarize it? Like, she's so, like, her anxiety forces her to take care of everything herself, that when things start to go wrong with, coming back from a hospital,
right,
she makes some poor choices about, I'm doing a terrible job.
That's all right.
I think that's good enough.
It's about a young woman who injures herself, has an accident, and the horror starts when she returns from the hospital.
Exactly.
And some things start to occur with her stitches.
You could make the case that, is this actually in her head, or is it really happening?
That's true. It's funny, because it is a pretty straightforward thing. There's not a lot of depth or twist to the plot, but it's even like the interpretation of that. Like, even Jerry, he kind of took it. So, like, my intention was always like, it is actually happening to her, and it's kind of that it's slightly not supernatural, but like there's something that's causing it that's not her. Like, it just starts
right.
to, it starts happening to her. But he took it as that she's so anxious about everything and so worked up that she's causing it to happen to herself by cleaning up.
Yeah.
So the little details like that like people take differently, that I find interesting, because it was totally, to me, it was like she comes back and she's dealing with cleaning up the mess from the accident, which is something I always think of as a really just dark and interesting angle of, like, someone who does live alone, if they were to really hurt themselves or something bad happened, and then you come home and there's no one there to clean up. So that, like, how much of a psychological aspect to that, where you have to clean up your own blood.
Yeah, exactly.
It's really horrifying. So,
well, dang it. I made this mess. Now I got to clean it up.
I think I remember seeing, I can't remember the name of it, but I saw a film years ago that was about a guy who tries to kill himself and then fails, and then comes home and has to clean up his failed attempt.
Oh,
and to me, I was like, that was so dark, because it was like, okay, here's someone who already doesn't want to live, and then you have to come home and do that. Like, it's just like, that's so depressing.
Yeah.
When you're already, so I kind of ran with that, but I wanted to take that kind of like slightly unnatural aspect of, like, all right, if these just start to unravel, because I've never had, outside of some dental stitches, I've never had a cut bad enough that I needed stitches. I've never had that. And
I've had
it is one of those things that, like, it's like a broken bone that I've never had, that is always kind of, the thought of has always grossed me out.
Yeah. I've had too many stitches.
Yeah, it's very, like, it's just, to me, it's very visceral, having this thing, like, holding your body together.
Right.
And I guess I might have stolen some of the idea of, like, if those start to fail, I might have stolen that from actually when my old partner and I were having a child, but, like, they had so much anxiety around kind of the aftercare, and, their stitching coming loose, and, like, there was so much, it was such a disturbing thing, and it disturbed them so much that I was like, okay, that's a really horrifying idea. Like, what if that did just start to happen? And, and then if you're that kind of independent already, that, maybe, would you go back to the hospital in that kind of extreme moment, or would you try to take care of it yourself? And that was really it. I mean, it was a drive to do something, because, we're still, in Nova Scotia, we were still in different waves of the pandemic. Right. And I wasn't, with the family and stuff, I wasn't, like, our social circle was really small. So I was still wanting to do something that was, like, me, maybe a couple other people involved, but keep it really small. So it was like, Hangnail was perfect for that. So we're like, let's take that, but even push it, to the next level.
Exactly.
And that was really the inspiration for it. It was just something I was like, Hangnail had done so well, and it had been a year and a half of it. And I was like, okay, I should have followed this up a long time ago. Let's make something. And we just kind of did it again, but just put a lot more effort into it.
Right. So what is next for?
Yeah, I was going to say, what do you got going on next now?
Well, I'm working. I have a short that I've had written for probably like 10 years, but it's a very ambitious short. So I haven't been able to get it kind of financed or produced. but I would love to approach that. It's called Hunter's Orange, and it's about a father and son on their kind of annual hunting trip, but they stumble upon kind of like a gang execution in the woods.
Dear.
And it kind of has shades of like No Country for Old Men, that kind of like violent crime, crime thriller, but it's also a coming of age story about this teenage boy who has to kind of go beyond his years and to survive.
Right.
So it's very violent, but also very, emotional.
It's the feel-good movie of the century.
Yeah, exactly. It's also about, a young person going through the loss of a parent.
Right.
Like I lost my father. I mean, it's 13 years ago now, but he was unexpected, and he had a strong connection. I had a strong connection with him, so it was a hard. It's still a hard thing to deal with now.
Right.
13 years later, as a 38-year-old man. So it's just that idea of that loss, but instead of it being like natural causes, let's kind of embed that in a crime thriller. So and a lot of the stuff in it, up to the witnessing of the crime execution that never happened, but a lot of the kind of relationship between the father and son is based on stuff that my dad and I did. We went on hunting trips. That was our bonding time for a number of years. So a lot of those moments in that are very personal and close for me. So I really want to make that because it means so much. And I still think it's one of my best scripts I've written. Cool. And then outside of that, I'm writing a micro budget feature that hopefully I can make in the next couple of years. Because I haven't made a feature yet. It's been my goal for a number of years, and I've had a few attempts, but it hasn't happened. So I just want to have something that I can, kind of like the way we did Hangnail and Stitches, find something small and intimate that I can make.
Cool.
But it's a kind of an end of the world survivalist movie. Kind of my best pitch would be if you took like the movie Monsters, if you remember the movie Monsters, if you took that and mixed it with the recent movie Arctic about the guy surviving in the airplane in the Arctic, like the crashed airplane.
Wow.
So if you kind of meld those, so like a bit of the genre stuff, it doesn't involve aliens, but like the genre stuff of like the end of the world aspect of like Monsters,
right,
with kind of a more intimate, quiet survival movie. So it's about a person who basically decides in kind of this, as society's collapsing from this event, they decide that even though they have no experience, no knowledge, they're going to go survive in the woods and think they'll be better off out there. And it's just kind of this learning journey with this character trying to figure it out how to survive in the woods. So I'm also an avid hiker and, camper. So I kind of try to meld some worlds of like filmmaking and my love of the outdoors. So those are my two things I'm working on right now.
Cool. Well, I hate to kind of end this, but unfortunately we are up against the red line, and I would love to talk to you some more. So we'll have to have you on again at some point in the future when you got something new to come out. But in the meantime, and I'll highly recommend all of our listeners to follow you. So what kind of social media presence do you have? I mean, Twitter, Facebook, etc.
Yeah, I'm on the big three. Twitter and Instagram are probably my two main ones that I use. So I'm OnStream Pro, like at OnStream Pro on there. Colin the Film Guy is my title. So Twitter I'm big on, so follow me there. Facebook, you can find OnStream Productions on there. And then, we have my YouTube channel that you can subscribe to as well, and Vimeo. But and search OnStream Productions. OnStreamProductions.com also has the links to my pages.
Cool. This has been really great talking to you.
This was a lot of fun.
Thank you so much for being
Thanks.
on the show this time.
Oh, I appreciate it. I would love to come back on anytime.
Cool.
Let me know.
Hello, this is Carlton Tetley, the host of This Got Made, and you're listening to the Two Gay Geeks. Am I getting paid for this?
Well, here's a few selected birthdays for March 14th through March 20th, 2022. March 14th, Rick Dees, actor, singer, radio personality, known for his weekly Top 40 show. He actually did a Top 40 show kind of in opposite Casey Kasem's America's Top 40.
You met him.
And I sat next to him in first class on the way back from Atlanta. He was coming to Phoenix for Thanksgiving. It was like Wednesday night or something. And he was coming here, and we sat and chatted, and I had no clue who he was.
And I was horrified when you told me this. I know who Rick Dees is.
Yep. He wrote Disco Doc.
Oh, yeah.
In 1977.
Not one of his more shining moments.
And been in numerous films and TV shows. And then we have Georg Philipp Telemon, composer of the Baroque era, one of the most prolific composers of all time, a friend of Bach and Handel. He was an important link between the Baroque and classical eras.
I love his work.
His work is incredible.
It's also
typical Baroque.
It is typical. No, I'm going to call it offbeat Baroque.
Offbeat Baroque.
Because there are some things, while they do fit within the overall confines of what Baroque music is, he did introduce things that were that made it a bit whimsical in my mind, like a hurdy-gurdy and things like that.
Was
that Heineken?
Heineken.
Oh, doggone, I got it wrong again. Okay.
Yep.
Scratch all that.
So that was Baroque. That was not Baroque. That was broke. Heineken was. Then we have friend of ours, Graham Skipper, and a former classmate of mine, Sky Robinson, who passed on a couple of years ago. March 15th, David Cronenberg, actor-director, known as the Baron of Blood, pioneered the body horror genre. We talked to Colin about that and talked about Cronenberg as well. Quite the actor. Oh, my gosh, he's been in quite a number of things.
Oh, really?
Most recently, Star Trek Discovery, just little bit parts here and there.
Oh.
Then we have Franciscus Silvius, Dutch physician of the 1600s, was a defender of the theory of blood circulation. Apparently, they didn't believe that blood circulated throughout the body. So, proponent of the works of Descartes, discoverer of the Silvius fissure in the brain, versus the left versus right brain, that fissure down the middle. And then we have friend of ours, Rhonda Parrish, Laura Velk, and Katrina Smutny. March 16th. Caroline Herschel, German astronomer in the late 1700s and early 1800s. First woman to receive a salary as a scientist, and a first woman to publish findings in the Royal Society publication. She died at the age of 97 in 1848.
Okay.
She was worked with her brother and did lots of astronomy. Victor Garber, actor, long and illustrious career, way back in the 70s in television, all the way up through, today. He hit the scene as Jesus in Godspell in 1973.
No.
Yep.
Really?
Yep.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Recently in The Flash,
Yeah.
Legends of Tomorrow, and The Orville.
I didn't know that he was in Godspell. I need to watch that again now.
And in 2015, he married his partner of 16 years, Rainer Andreessen. And then Victoria Mature. That's Victor Mature's daughter, is a friend of ours on Facebook. March 17th, Homer Plessy, born a free person of color in Louisiana during the Reconstruction era. Challenged the racial segregation laws through an act of civil disobedience that resulted in the Supreme Court case Plessy versus Ferguson, one of the court's most egregious decisions that instituted the separate but equal doctrine. Thank God it was overturned in 1954 with the Brown versus Board of Education. But interesting thing was that if you read about his life, that Louisiana at that time, they had fully integrated schools, black people could vote. It was a fully integrated society until the Confederate soldiers moved out and, then, all heck broke loose. Alfred Newman, composer, 231 credits as composer, and 345 credits in the music department in his IMDb profile. He was a child prodigy who worked for 20th Century Fox from 1938 to 1959. Famous for The King and I, as well as a 20th Century Fox theme.
Oh, okay.
Yep, he wrote that, among other things. And then we have a friend of ours, Rachel Morini and Stephen Harris. March 18th, Brad Dourif, actor, most famous for One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest, where he played Billy Bibbit, Lord of the Rings, and Dune. Mm-hmm. He plays creepy very well. Oh,
he's quite the method actor.
Yep. Announced to play Dr. William Blackmore in the version of Herbert West Reanimator.
My favorite story about Brad is when he was in Lord of the Rings, and he was Wormtongue in that. And Brad does not speak with a British accent, but he adopted one, and a very convincing one in my mind, and kept that all the way through entire production until he rapped, until he was done, at which point he then dropped it, and it was then later reported that, was it Bernard Hill, I think?
Bernard Hill.
Yeah, Bernard Hill said, that's the worst American accent I've ever heard.
Interesting. And then we have Lillian Vernon, businesswoman, creator of the Old Lady catalog, as I used to call it. My grandmother subscribed to that thing. I think she always had at least a dozen of them laying around. I think they printed that thing every 2 weeks and sent it out. It was like this 100-page catalog of tchotchkes that little old ladies could buy. And, she's always giving them to everybody. The Lillian Vernon Company actually was the first company traded on the stock market that was founded by a woman. Not that the stock market was founded by a woman, but the first company founded by a woman traded on the stock market.
Check.
Yes. And then we have a friend of ours, Adrian Payne and Margaret Juntwaite.
Oh, we miss you, Margaret.
Oh, missed Margaret terribly every single day that we listened to the Met Opera Radio. March 19th, Mario J. Molina, a chemist. He was notable for his role in the discovery of the Antarctic ozone hole, the first Mexican-born scientist to win the Nobel Prize in Chemistry. And Ursula Andress, actress, known for Dr. No as a Bond girl and a not-so-Bond girl in Casino Royale because it was an unofficial Bond film.
That Casino Royale.
Yes. And she was in What's New, Pussycat and Clash of the Titans, so big roles. Lived with Harry Hamlin, and they had a son together.
Yes.
And then we have a friend of ours, Patricia Wade de Silvestri, and Michael R. Menengay, the podfather of this podcast. March 20th, Carl Palmer, a drummer.
Emerson, Lake and Palmer. Asia. He's had quite the illustrious career, but I think those are the two things that most people will know him for today.
Yep. And William Hurt, actor, Avengers Endgame, Lost in Space, Children of a Lesser God, Kiss of the Spider Woman, where he waived his salary so that the film could come in on budget. And as a big fan of the Incredible Hulk comic, and obviously got to play Thaddeus Ross in the 2008 Incredible Hulk film, as well as Avengers Endgame. And that's it for the birthdays this time.
Technorama, the podcast for geeks, because geeks are better than cool. You don't hear someone say, "Get away from me, you cool person." Who's gonna have their 65-inch home theater system installed by the Cool Squad? Not me, that's for sure. How much cool cred do you have? Not enough to care about. Think you'll find any canned unicorn meat at thinkcool.com? It's just a part domain name. They don't even have roadkill in a paper cup. That's why you need to start listening to Technorama, because that's what geeks do. Go to chuckchat.com and listen to Technorama before you turn cool.
Go give a listen to our friends Chuck and Craig over at Technorama Podcast.
I'm Daniel Radcliffe, and I believe that reaching out for help is the bravest thing a person can do. If you are struggling and need support, call the Trevor Lifeline at 1-866-488-7386. It's free and confidential, and trained counselors are there to listen 24/7 without judgment. To learn more about the Trevor Project's life-saving work for lesbian, gay, bisexual, transgender, or questioning young people, go to thetrevorproject.org.
We want to give a shout out to the Joshua Tree Feeding Program, a 501c3 nonprofit food pantry for the HIV and AIDS community in Maricopa and Pinal counties. They offer a place where the clients can select from a wide assortment of nutritional foods to take home, and they set it up like a store so that they can pick and choose anything they want and no food is wasted. They're an all-volunteer organization and could certainly use your help. If you want to support Joshua Tree, you can go to jtfp.org and give a single gift or a monthly recurring gift.
And it's time for our feedback. These are comments that we received in response to articles and our episodes that we ran on our website at tggeeks.com, and the links for each of these articles or episodes will be in the show notes for this episode number 369 on our website at tggeeks.com. And most of these, well, generally our feedback comes in on Facebook, but I'll announce it when they're not. Starting with, regarding Devette C's movies, Death on the Nile. It stays afloat, but barely. Got a comment from Hamish Downey. He left this for us on Twitter. He says, I might stick to the Betty Dervis. Whoops.
The Betty Whirling Dervis.
the Betty Dervis version. The Betty Davis version, then. Wow. I just really butchered that one, didn't I? In any case, Hamish, we agree with you. We just recently watched the Betty Davis version and enjoyed it thoroughly one more time.
Yes.
And then got a comment from John Smith on Twitter who said, I thought the Murder on the Orient Express, and then he's referring to the remake, was okay, but nothing special. He, meaning Kenneth Branagh, plays a very different Poirot, almost like Sherlock Holmes. And I would agree with that. I would say Sherlock Holmes with a really nasty attitude.
Yeah.
Moving on, regarding TG Geeks episode number 365, we got a comment from Amanda in Tennessee. We know her from our Slice of Sci-Fi days, and she says, thank you, is her birthday shout-out we gave her. And then got another comment from Hamish Downey, who also says, thank you for the shout-out. I can't wait to listen to this episode. And then we close it off regarding Arizona Opera announces its 2022-23 season. And we got a comment from Arizona Opera on Instagram saying, thanks for sharing, and that is our feedback.
If you want to leave a comment on anything that we publish, whether it be on our webcast, our website.
Wow, not just me tonight, boys.
tggeeks.com, or on our Facebook page. You can also comment on Twitter, Instagram, and any place else that you might find us, such as YouTube for the episodes. We also have a listener feedback line. If you want to leave a voicemail, we will love to hear from you. We'll play that on air, and you can call 469-TG-GEEKS. That is 469-844-3357. And as always, please play nice.
For more than 2 decades, Judy and Dennis Shepard have honored their son Matt by working to erase hate around the world. The Matthew Shepard Foundation honors his legacy by inspiring the good work of activists, teachers, artists, and legislators, and everyday LGBTQ+ folks and their allies. Join us today in helping to erase hate. Visit MatthewShepard.org.
Thank you to Comcast NBC Universal for that promo. We want to give a shout out to independent creators, whether it's filmmakers, comic book artists, writers, or others. Please go to their web pages, their Facebook pages, their Etsy pages, Twitter, Instagram, TikTok, any place that you find those independent creators, and chat them up. Buy their stuff if they have something to sell, and tell other people about their stuff. Please consider supporting independent creators. If you are trans or are questioning your gender identity, and if you are in crisis or are feeling isolated and need someone to talk to, or you know of someone in a similar situation, there is a special hotline just for you. The hotline is provided by translifeline.org and staffed by trained counselors who are transgender themselves. The hotline in the U.S. is 877-565-8860. In Canada, it is 877-330-6366. Or you can go to translifeline.org to learn about the important work they are doing. Please reach out for help. You are not alone.
Yeah, baby. They're like two gay geeks. They're together, you know. They're two gay guys and they're geeks. Is that okay?
Before we talk about our item that we have in the second segment, I just want to say the reason we run a spot for the Trevor Project and the Trans Lifeline on every single episode is because we want people to know that there is help out there, especially now that the LGBTQ plus community is under such
we're under attack
again with the Florida Don't Say Gay bill and a number of other bills, and the trans community especially. We want you to know that there is help. It affects not only young people, but people of all ages, and that wonder if it's worth continuing life, you know? So please, if you have questions or you are struggling with suicide ideations, please reach out for help. Yeah, there is help.
There is. And I just want to add one little trivial thing. I made a slight slip up just a little moment ago. Keith made a gaffe, and then I said, "It's not just me tonight, boys," and I felt really badly for saying that.
Yeah.
So I didn't mean to offend anybody when I threw out the word boys. So if anybody was a little bothered by that, I apologize. That was just my hind brain kicking in. So I'm sorry for saying that.
No worries. Well, we watched...
Oh, my goodness gracious me.
Goodness gracious me.
I'm going to let you take this one because I've got a review that I'm going to run on Tuesday morning, so my thoughts will come out on that. But I would really like to get your thoughts on...
The Adam Project. We watched that last night, which was Friday night, as part of our viewing. And Ryan Reynolds, and I didn't know anything about this film, and then it just launched in. I really enjoyed it. I enjoyed seeing Ryan Reynolds in a slightly different context. I mean, much in his element, but in a different context. But it was good. And the kid that plays,
oh my goodness,
young Adam, you know, obviously Ryan Reynolds plays older Adam,
right?
And the kid Walker Scobie, I think
that's
is his
I'm
name.
looking him up right now. I think that's his name.
Walker Scobie.
Yeah, Walker Scoble.
Scoble. There we go. I was amazed when they did the full frontal face shot of him sitting in the car, and we paused it for a second because when it just quickly went by, the resemblance to Ryan Reynolds was uncanny. And he certainly understood the snark of Ryan Reynolds as well. I mean, the two of them played off of each other very well. It was almost like watching a very young Ryan Reynolds play himself. But it was a good film. There was a lot of humor. It was, I wouldn't say it's necessarily a fluff piece, but it has some fluff. It's lighthearted. It has a little bit of science fiction in it. Obviously, it's about time travel. And it also features Mark Ruffalo as well as
Zoe
Saldana. And it just really is a good film. And I will say that if you have issues with your father and feelings of abandonment or, absent father. There's a couple of moments that it pushes some buttons.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it certainly did with me, but it was good buttons.
Yeah, these were very good buttons. I agree.
It helped to heal that.
Yeah, I'll go into greater detail on what I thought, except to say that I thought it was just a marvelous movie. I just loved it. And what really got me is that I saw somebody on Twitter saying, I wish I could forget that I had seen this movie so that I could watch it again and experience all those wonderful feelings once more. And Ryan Reynolds himself responded to that tweet with, lots of positive and loving emoticons.
That's cool.
So that was enough for me to sit up and say, I think I need to take a look at this movie.
Yeah. So it's a great film. So I would encourage you. It's streaming on Netflix right now. So go ahead and catch that film.
And it's time for our recap that reeks. That's what I like to call it. The wacky weekly review. These are items that we ran on our website at teachgeeks.com this past week, and the links for each of these articles will be in the show notes for this episode article number 369 on our website at teachgeeks.com. Starting with Sunday, March 6th, Nerdy Chupacabras number 90. On Monday the 7th, TG Geeks episode number 368. On Tuesday the 8th, Body Horror Shorts, Stitches Will Make You Unravel at the Seams. Brum-bum. On Wednesday the 9th, All the Old Knives in theaters and globally on Amazon Prime, April 8th. On Thursday the 10th, Andrea's Angle, Compartment number 6, Beautiful Connections. This is a movie that she just reviewed. On Friday the 11th, Hamish Downey's 5 Questions with Anthony Aguiar. And on Saturday the 12th, Disney Plus announces live-action Pinocchio for September.
Pinocchio.
We have some shout-outs that we need to make. First to Brian Weber, also known as Arkle, who we interviewed a number of episodes ago. He is known on Twitter as Geek of All Trades or Brian the Ampersand List YouTuber. He has his Arkle Times Post Dispatch News. Well, I'm really just hitting on all thrusters today. And the Post Dispatch News sometimes republishes our content from time to time. That's why we're kind of giving it a push. And if you want to find the Post Dispatch News, find him on Twitter, and you can do that by searching for Geek of All Trades. That is G, number 3, K of All Trades. And while you're looking for all things Arkle, go to his YouTube channel, youtube.com/Arkle Studios. Brian has a number of his projects there. His Shameless Cash Grab series, which is in season 7. His Rants vs. Zombies series. The episodes are still there, even though it is no longer in production. He also has his Arkle tier ranks, his game videos of Trick and Treat, as well as Star Trek Online. We must also give some shout-outs to a couple of Facebook groups for allowing us to post our stuff there. First, Two Gay Geeks After Hours. Big thanks to the moderators for saying we could share away on their page, and their URL is facebook.com/group/Gay Geeks After Hours. And then to The Gay Geek for pretty much the same, and their URL is facebook.com/group/The Gay Geek. And as always, we give special thanks to their moderator, Jeremiah Reeves.
Thanks, Jeremiah. Other places we can be found are Spotify, TuneIn, Stitcher, Amazon Podcasts, as well as where other fine podcasts can be found. Also, check us out on Sci-Fi Radio at 3 a.m. and 3 p.m. Pacific Time on Tuesdays for a replay, and listen to their other content. They are a geeky 24-hour internet radio station. Please rate us and review us on iTunes, and don't forget to subscribe to our YouTube channel. And that should do it for this episode of TG Geeks Webcast. Be sure to check out the article for this webcast episode. We'll have several links on the page of things that we talked about, as well as you can leave us a voicemail on our... I got lost completely.
It's not just
got
me.
Distracted there by something else on the page. Comment on our Facebook page or our website, tggeeks.com, or you can leave us a voicemail at 469-TG-GEEKS. That is 469-844-3357. From TG Squared Studios, I'm Keith Lane. Thanks for listening. Please be kind to yourself and those around you. Stay safe, wear a mask, get vaccinated. Peace.
Cheers.